Welcome to Edge of Intelligence, the show where we explore how AI automation and digital strategy are shaping the real world of business operations. I'm Carl Owen, a fractional CIO and AI strategy advisor at Intelligent. Today's guest is Olusola Akinsulere, the visionary CTO of Retail Loop, an insights and data platform transforming how African retail businesses understand customers and make decisions. Olusola, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, thank you very much.
Glad you're here. What inspired you to start Retail Loop?
Okay, so bit of backstory. I studied computer science at University of Lagos, South Nigeria, and one of my final year projects was majorly around the retail space. So it was more or less like a building like a recommendation engine for like a brick and mortar store. So that was like my undergraduate thesis. Our first introduction into machine learning and traditional machine learning, that was back in 2016, 2017. Traditional ML was still what was in vogue at that point. So after school, my first job after school was also a retail startup. And the retail startup was majorly fixing or finding insights into broken supply chain infrastructure, especially in the FMCG space. So I saw firsthand how transparency in data or transparency in processes will kind of like enhance operational efficiency. So fast forward to a couple of years, I'm my other co-founder. He also works in Nestle at that point when he first started his career. So he also like saw firsthand how at that point Nestle was a bit more advanced, so like in because they're not necessarily like an African country. African company. So they are like being more advanced in technology. So use of first and also how like technology can enhance operational efficiency in that sense.
Mhm.
Forward 2019, I got the opportunity to lead like an early stage startup. They were like I'm trying to do B2C, majorly B2C. I'm trying to see how they can give loans to like we call them traditional retailers. So in terms of your mom and pop shops, and all those we call them kiosks in Nigeria. So we wanted to see how we can also lend financial credit to them, as also give them direct access to these manufacturers that were also in the country. So that was pre-COVID 2019. 2020, we saw like an acceleration of that process in terms of there were other offshoots of other companies, or different other startups almost in the same similar things. So we saw that there was a valid PMS. Our product was validated in terms of okay, since other people are also trying to enter the market and also trying to see into the opportunity in the retail space in Africa or Nigeria to be precise, and there's something that's so I'm a co-founder. We're like the founding team members of that startup. We like built majority of infrastructure from scratch in the same building and also the processes themselves. So we were more like a founder, but without the founder title. Fast forward 2022, so we went our separate ways and we did other things. But the retail experience and this retail sweet spot and the retail, also in the retail space also. So when we initially first started, we were trying different ideas. When we first started retail, we were trying different ideas. And one of the first ideas was like headless commerce. But headless commerce isn't necessarily in vogue in Africa or in emerging markets right now, or as at that point. We were like trying to model ourselves like a Medit searches, different headless commerce sites in other more advanced markets. But we saw that that's not what that was not necessarily needed. And at that point, internet penetration was becoming a bit better in terms of people having access to like 5G or mobile phones. Because we're tapping into the market of okay, let us even first digitize the whole supply chain process of medium or small scale businesses in terms of okay, you are using barrel and paper now to do your inventory. You are using you are still having like operational inefficiencies in terms of value. check your inventory stock, how you check out, how you do your sales, how you do front of sales. So we piloted with a customer, and we saw like there was a very good use case. And we then expanded into several other customers that were also eventually onboarded. So what we tried to do was to not necessarily build based off our understanding. Because like I said earlier, our initial idea was not even the inventory thing, it was like more or less like headless commerce. So we pivoted a couple of times, then we saw what we needed or what was needed in the market actually. And we saw that these businesses, even if some of them have the money, they don't necessarily have the digital process or digital tools to like make their businesses more efficient. You can give examples. Businesses will give examples of how they often see theft in their business because nobody's tracking like their inventory. So they make sales each day, and they don't even know, okay, how much is that actually sell. So there are no check and balances to say, okay, this is how much I sold. Even if maybe the sales or the person, the cashier at the store, I give you wrong figures, but you can always reconcile and see this is not what is going out. This is what I have, and other stuff. So that's like the first step even into any form of digital transformation. 2022 was also the year OpenAI came. It was December, and it wasn't as loud as it is now. Based on my background, like based on my experience in the ML space, traditional ML space, just started us subtly looking at it and seeing where it will lead because most things at the initial stages are like hyped, but this one is not. It just came out to be like it's not going to be hyped anymore. 2023, we are still doing our inventory management and trying to onboard more customers around different regions. 24 last time we saw that there's a bit of stability in the AI space, at least. We could see more use cases in terms of um, what is being offered. Since it's like an emerging, not necessarily emerging technology in that sense, but LLMs are like fairly new. So we could see that we can as well play in the space regardless of wherever we're coming from, even if it's Africa, even if it's anywhere else. We can as well play in that space because everybody seems to be like on the same level in terms of using the technology. Nobody really knows everything aside the people using those LLMs themselves. And so we saw the sweet spot that okay, let's have two separate businesses in terms of who we service. The traditional inventory will still be there, but there's still a bit of knowledge, bit of learning to learn from others from the SMEs themselves because the their distribution of most of them are maybe roughly around 40 to like 60. So there's still like a bit of they didn't grow up with like internet, they didn't grow up with technology. So bringing AI to them at that point, even when they've not fully digitized, could be like a hit and miss at the end of the day. So we focus more AI on the enterprise side of things. And we got some customers to do POCs with this. And luckily, we saw the sweet spot around what the POCs will do with this enterprise. Majorly, enterprise will focus on AI, building AI use cases and AI optimizations for them. So we now have like a new product, and that is still being built to like validate all the POCs we've done. So um, it's still under the retail loop umbrella, and we'll try to see how we can expand that and take advantage of like the whole AI, especially in the retail space. So based on the POC we did, and we want to like validate and make it like a custom platform where any other person, any other retailer can have like access to it.
What makes the African retail landscape unique when it comes to data and technology challenges?
Yeah. So first, I would say first we were not necessarily introduced to the internet age as fast as. So if I can recall, internet boom, there was a down .NET boom in 2000-ish in the foreign market. African did not necessarily participate in that. Africa did not necessarily participate in that. At first, I'll speak for Nigeria to be specific. Our first major introduction to like um, real technology, not necessarily um, websites and HTML and other programming languages, was majorly those telephones. So we had like a breakthrough like 2001, 2002. So we had like the first influx of telecommunications country, companies in Nigeria. So initially, before that, you have to like send fax, you have to send post office travel. So we are kind of lagging behind in terms of those technology advancement that were already in vogue in other parts of part of the world. And in terms of data and fragmentation, so I will also speak to fragmentation. Um, because Nigeria, to be specific, is a bit diverse. So you can have someone speaking Nigeria, for instance, has over, if I'm not mistaken, over 50 different languages. So we are so diverse to see we want to use one specific thing. So everybody has their own taste, and that leads to like fragmentation. So, for instance, what works in maybe in the western side of Nigeria, so in terms of how you market your product, might not necessarily work in the eastern part of Nigeria because there are like different cultural, even if it's one, there are different cultural differences, largely because of the language. I can't, I won't point it down to language, but the cultures are totally different. So even if it's the same continent, unlike a US um, where majority of the language is spoken is English or something. So if you go to the western side of Nigeria, you see different behaviors, customer behaviors, and you as a company entering the market or a global company entering the market, you need to like understand, okay, what is my target market in this place? Where do I even want to start from? So my experiences across even watching advertisement, I've seen, okay, for instance, a beer brand will like target a beer brand that wants to target maybe the eastern part of Nigeria. We do ads like we do advertisement that suits them. So whereas in maybe like in US or in Europe or maybe like in Germany, since most of them speak the same language, the ad can resonate with everybody. So if I'm doing something specific, I have to do it specific to. So the northern part is even totally different from how they behave in the western part of Nigeria, even how they behave in the eastern part of Nigeria. And I think that they behave in the south. So that fragmentation is there. And the kinds of series, the kind of you have to be you can't necessarily use data sets to like say this is how someone behave. Someone coming from a global market based on his own knowledge, we see that okay, if I can drill down on this specific market, this specific area, I know that I can copy this strategy and put it in a different strategy in a different state. But in Nigeria, if I'm saying how to do this strategy for maybe in Lagos, Lagos is the western part of Nigeria. If I say how to do this strategy here, the chances that it will work in this part of Nigeria is going to be very low because, like I said, cultural differences and how personality is very stick.
I bet that is difficult to navigate.
Yeah, yeah. Very, you have to be foot on ground.
Yeah,
Every foot on ground.
yeah. Well, when it comes to retail loop, what kind of decisions are your clients making with your platform today?
So largely, like I said, we have like two products. We have the one for medium sales businesses. So what we've seen on the platform and what we've seen from my insights internally, people are trying. People want insights, but they want it at a specific time. They don't want to be necessarily looking at okay, this is what is happening every day. So because of the previous behavior they had, as most of them are used to someone sending them reports. So at the end of the day, someone sends you a report and say this is what I've been sold. This is fine. But to change that behavior needs constant retraining and constant reorientation. What we try to do is to even send push notifications and set intervals. So what we've noticed is, for instance, there was a particular customer in the northern part of Nigeria. We have like a CRM tool on the system also. He mentioned specifically that he doesn't want to collect those customers' data because they won't ask for it. They don't want to give it, which is fair. So our initial assumption was okay. Anybody can give you data, and if you tell them it's for the reality purposes, they almost have to give you. So that was like a strategy in like in the other side of the region, like other side of Nigeria. So once we tried to even pilot in that side of the region, they specifically told us no, that nobody wants to give you anything. So we had to like even change some things on the system itself to allow for some optionality in terms of what we want to collect and what we want to collect and what they don't want to collect. So those type of subtool insights. We also use um, um, like tools to like see the data points of what one is actually what we're actually clicking on. So most people once they come is because Nigeria is mostly price sensitive. Once they come to the website or once they come to wherever they're going to, na- as of last month, 30%, almost 50% of them, the first page they go to is the pricing page. So we now notice that to be competitive, you also have to be competitive on the pricing because that is where most of them. So majority of those data insights on how we see most of our customers or most of our potential customers looking at. So we look at what they click on, what interactions they make, and see how to improve that. Then for the enterprise side, that is this is majorly like B2B, proper B2B enterprise. Going to send proposals, saying, okay. So what I try to do is to see high signals, high intent customers. So we have like a internal tool where we see like high intent customers in terms of what are these people looking at? What is the so for instance, if you have like a customer that is you can check their feeds and check whatever they're doing and see that okay, constantly mention a particular keyword and see that okay, this keyword does and we see that this keyword resonates with what we do. Reach out to them and see if we can get a meeting, proper B2B enterprise sales. So in terms of the whole life cycle, sales life cycle, maybe sometimes take us with 3 4 months before we even close the deal. So, but it gives us like the majority of whatever we do, majority of the revenue we make. So it's slow, but that's why we are trying to get what we've learned, our learnings into the enterprise and see how we can use AI as an advantage and go to a global market and see how we can compete there.
Interesting. Tell us how AI is playing a role in your platform.
Okay, two things. We have what we call omnichannel engagement or omnichannel conversations. The idea is bring your data source or bring your so if, for instance if you have like stores around different so this more treated to like people with chains of stores. So if you have like different shops around the area or around different locations and you want to like see all the conversations and kind of make necessary. So what we see in majority of the our customers, internal customers, and even the B2B customers is once that customer support is kind of overwhelmed, it kind of people will be bombarding them, especially when there's like high traffic in terms of what they want to sell. So instances where we now saw that okay, why can't we like based of what the data you already have and what you also communicate. We're not removing anybody in the group. We only have like a normal approval for getting things. And once it's like an high traffic situation, the AI agents we're building can then send responses based on the personalized information you're saying about different customers. That's on one end. Then we also have like demand forecasting in terms of inventory. So situations where you might not even know when you're going to be out of stock and you don't even have your record is on pen and paper. Your sales records are on pen and paper, and you cannot necessarily you most likely need like a data analyst or someone to convert it to Excel for you to even know when next you need to stock up or when next you need to go to the market to like get your goods. Um in that scenario, we have like demand forecasting features where based off your patterns and based off your sales patterns, we can prompt you at intervals and say, okay, this is when you need to go back. And we can also like um, predict kind of predict, not obviously not going to be 100% accurate. So we can kind of predict how many people will come to your store, how many people will come to your stores, when do you have low traffic, when do you have light traffic. And having that information can then lead into the pricing strategy of, okay, if I have low sales, if I have low traffic today, what should be my next decision? If I have low fat traffic today, I can as well I can as well give you a discount. I can do a discount so that I can increase my sales. Because at the end of the day, everybody wants to make more sales, not everybody wants to have more revenue. And everything we try to do is majorly tilted towards either making customer happy or increasing your revenue. So, um, so if you say you have low traffic to the, why not give out discounts and say people can come? If I have high traffic today, I can do like maybe a sort or maybe give give a sort or get more people through, depending on what you want to do at that point. We just tell you that this is our recommendation on what you want to do, what you need to do during those periods. Um, so those are the two major ones we're working on. We have other features that we're trying to like see scope out in terms of the functionality there.
Interesting. Well, there's always a debate between how much AI is going to um, disrupt the environment and all that, and this human in the loop piece, and you gotta have to have a tight balance with all that.
Yeah.
What's your view on balancing human insight versus algorithmic decision making in the retail environment?
Yeah, so um I feel my view is majority of the grunt work will go. Grunt work in terms of counting stock, in terms of retail. So for instances where you need like we call them loaders in Africa. I don't know if they call them loaders anywhere else. So loaders are people that will go to the truck and start counting whatever is coming out from the truck one by one. So majority of that grunt work or those low level work will most likely go. And I feel most jobs return to management or managerial positions in terms of validating whatever output the AI environment gives you. So at the end of the day, you need to be more. You can't. At the end of the day, you can't. You don't necessarily have. People don't necessarily have control of what technology is going to disrupt or whatever. You just have to even try to see if you can even up in. If it doesn't now suit you, you can move out. But at least try to even have the knowledge of whatever is happening. Most likely, most likely most likely low level tax will go, or non-local tax will go, and people tend to, yeah, most likely tend to be don't turn people to managerial positions. Um, in cases where once I see code, I'm actually like a developer myself, or as being like a so one thing I've even noticed is that's giving me like more freedom to like learn the fundamentals again. So I can go back to the fundamentals because fundamentals will never change. Coding languages will come and go. Whatever we had Fortran then, we had Pascal then. So coding language will forever will always keep on evolving. So if your upside is that you know syntax of a particular language, those type of things are not that they could have even gone because anybody can pick up a language now and say so far he has the experience of programming. Anybody can pick up a language and say, okay, if I know a JavaScript, what is the equivalent of JavaScript in like a C sharp? What is the equivalent of a JavaScript in like a Java? AI tends to accelerate all those type of things. Initially, if you even wanted to do that before, you have to be scrubbing around Stack Overflow and every other things. The grunt tax will most likely go and it tend who doesn't need to necessarily go back to the fundamentals of things and first principles to see how they can improve. Because even the AI itself is based on first principles. It's not in the type of thing to happen.
Interesting. Well, are you seeing your clients asking more about AI or asking for more AI or machine learning driven features, or is it still more about data accessibility for now?
Yeah. So we are seeing a bit of both. Because right now is this 2025 or 2020? So like people are most likely most more people are talking about AI in the Africa space, seeing how they can even get in line. We're seeing a bit of both, but it's still the conversation is still towards people mostly talking about the conversations of AI mostly enterprise. So enterprise are bigger organizations that even have the budget. Because if we're saying we want to do like AI POCs for them, we most likely have to put it on their own data set. We most likely have to train it on their own data set. Even if the AIs or the LLMs are accessible, training or fine-tuning on those data sets are still kind of expensive, relatively expensive to like the African market. So it's majorly people that have those assets or those insights or those um, narratives or and those budgets, the budget to do that. Low level things like customer agents that have like subscription based access is fair because I think it's a bit accessible to smaller organizations. But majority of what is happening right now in the SMS space is around from my own point of view is around most technology I've seen in the SME space, like smaller medium-sized scale businesses, has been majorly customer agents because we are very large, we are very populous, and once you have like a thriving business, you want to answer our customers as fast as possible. So I think that has been like the first major use case I've seen like widespread. That is not necessarily retail. So customer agents. So I've seen a couple of startups use it. Yeah, I've seen a couple of startups use it to like improve their customer support processes.
Well, tell us a little bit about some of the biggest technical challenges you see today. Is it data quality, compute, or operationalizing some of the models?
For the models themselves, so I did what I've noticed when I started doing the architecture for the new product, most of them have their specific use cases. So obviously Claude is majorly for programming and coding agents and all those type of programming languages themselves. But in terms of reasoning, because majority of what you try to do is around reasoning and predicting, I see O3 and the O3 model from ChatGPT. Um, Gemini 2.5 that just recently came out is also I've used it a couple of times. I've used it recently, and I think um for some use cases the output for both of them in terms of what their reasoning capacity is. 2.5 seems to have edged it a bit from what my observation because it gives you more detailed answers as regards as opposed to O3. So I've used O3 extensively. I haven't used O3 before I started using 2.5 because I think 2.5 came out after O3. So um I haven't used Amazon Bedrock extensively. I used it once for like sound to because I have like a voice agent we're trying to do. We're still testing that out. Most of them have their strengths. And for custom building, you don't want to necessarily use one type of model to like test your product because at the end of the day, most of them most likely not use a cloud for reasoning that is outside of coding. And the same way you not use like a multimodal model for text-based text-based conversation. The ideal thing is to find the strength, the actual strength, not what is marketed per se. You can only find out by testing it with your own data or with several people's data or with your own data basically or testing it out on your own. So you can then find out what they're very good at so you can use the best fit for um whatever you're trying to do.
Well, around the data space, are you finding that most of your clients have their own data governance frameworks, or are you helping them build those from scratch?
Data governance. For smaller scale businesses, we have to do that from scratch because they most likely they most likely don't even know what the data governance is per se because they're mostly two-man businesses, three-man business at most. They have chains of stores and even headed by two-man, three-man businesses, four-man businesses, so four-man army. But for larger organizations, yeah, they have their own data governance because they can be fined by the government in terms of how data has been transmitted. So there's like an NDPR that's already in place by the government, at least in Nigeria. So most of them have to comply. They have data officers, they have CIOs, they have, but those are majorly people that have the budget for these things. And according to data, the SMEs are like employ more people than um the larger organizations. So to be fair, SMEs might not necessarily have like the budget to say I need to data officer. And where we come in, if they use the AI and if they tend to use the AI platform, we tell them that um, this has to be done and some of this set it up for them in terms of data governance. But for larger organizations, they also tend to have their own, most of them have their own data governance rules.
I would imagine that you see just multiple different levels of digital maturity across your customer base. How do you navigate that?
Yeah, so initially we first focused on the SMEs, and we first focused on the SMEs because we saw they were the easier to people to like prove or validate a proof of concepts. Like I said, enterprise finding a sales cycle of 4 months, 3 months, sometimes 5 months. So that's never sustainable in terms of how we want to operate. We had to do it strategically so that okay, we go to people that are easily accessible, prove this point of concept, and start selling to them maybe at a cheaper price compared to what we sell to like the enterprise, and see how we can navigate and increase our revenue step by step. As at all of 2023 was majorly focused on SMEs, half of also 2023, half of 2024 was also focused on SMEs. Then we started slowly pivoting to like the enterprise side of things and seeing um how we can, because 2024 was when AI kind of started catching fire in Nigeria especially. So we saw like okay, let us even test this out and see how we can navigate that. But we had our initial focus. There are still focus, but we have like a separate team that handles that um and this sales X focus on majorly the AI platform and the enterprise people, enterprise customers.
Or are there systems or workflows internally that you know you need to automate next?
Um, I'm even trying to see how I can automate lead generation specifically. But like I mentioned, I'm not a salesperson. I'm not a salesperson like by training. I had to learn that on the job. So what I learned was to get like enterprise customers or even get any customers, you need to know when they want it, how they want it, and where do they need it. So after being like an engineer myself, you have to think like scientifically and see how do I generate these leads. Following up can be a bit of prospecting and saying, okay, these are the set of people that are needed to be doing. I noticed that some some AI startups abroad that automate most of all these lead generation processes. But at the end of the day, you can't remove the human effect of sales, of meeting the person. Because especially like I said, in Africa or Nigeria to specific, different regions have different ways of doing things. And I'm not sure AI is at that position or at that point where it can dynamically think about the the nuances between those contexts. So Eastern, Western, Northern, all it sees is data, but it doesn't necessarily understand the cultural differences between those regions. Yes, since that can be automated lead prospecting these clients and seeing the eye signals. I call them eye signals. I think I did it in a post where those things are called eye signals. Want to know which customers have eye signals or eye intent for getting what you're looking for. Like that processes, I think, based off the research I've done, that like processes on ways you can even automate the lead prospecting. even down to, for instances where you even need to like send conversations to them. But what I've noticed in that process is that you always need like human approval because context still matters at the end of the day. Maybe if it's in a larger or global market like the US or different other markets they're not necessarily fragmented. It's easier to like okay because they likely speak English here in Africa or here in Nigeria. So there's something they call pidgin. So like I'm speaking pidgin, I can even speak pidgin in the email to just get the person's attention so that because you need to really understand the person deep. And I'm not sure. And most of the funny thing is most of the B2B enterprise guys or enterprise customers I won't say old heads, I don't want to call them old heads. So uh um they still it's still like culture to them. So you need to understand them, follow the old process, traditional processes of knowing somebody. Maybe younger guys like me and younger generation, they can be more flexible. But they are the ones that majority of the ones that are the ones that have like the cash flow to like even give you anything aside maybe like a global market. With those contexts, lead prospecting can like be automated, definitely. And like sending out personalized messages to an extent, fair, can also be automated. From my observations, that has to be like you have to have the human in the loop for those type of things. So
Right.
even to like have the context you need to add.
Yeah. Well, what's your vision for retail loop in the next, say, 2 to 3 years?
We want to even play in that AI space and see how we can. There's a specific company, I don't want to say the company we look up to. The company is in Finland. The company has been there since 2005. There's a specific company we look up to because I think the majority have taken over the Europe market in terms of, and they don't, and you won't know if you're not in that space. I think they're kind of unique. I think they're unicorn, if I'm not mistaken. They are not, those like silent killers, to be fair. I mean, that's 2005. I don't think that since 2005 to now is over 20 years. So for a business, and I'm sure they started as a startup, for a business to be there for over 20 years now, having to going through every evolution and still being relevant is kind of what I try to do. I want to be the business that can stand the test of time. Yeah, things can go south, but at the end of the day, you just want to know you've tried your best at the end of the day and see that okay, this is what I've built. People are using this thing. And okay, if it shuts down due to different things, it doesn't at least you know you tried your best at the end of the day. But there is specific company you look up to now my co-founder. I look up to because they are doing a lot in the retail space and are like silent killers. No drama, no they just do that thing. These are the kind of things and I kind of look at too.
Well, you've already alluded to this a little bit, but where do you see the greatest opportunity to scale geographically, vertically, or a new product?
Um like I mentioned, we have like based on the POC we do the enterprise, we're trying to like build out like custom a custom platform, AI platform based off our findings from those POCs. First we want to try the European market, and see and see how we can even penetrate or see because at the end of the day, startup immediately does experimenting to find whatever PMF you're looking for. But we noticed that if you go with the AI products or based on the initial tests we have, if you go with the AI platform in like Nigeria or even Africa, it might take a bit of relearning and we're even seeing it with the not so difficult CRMs and inventory management tools because we need to constantly educate them. Because we have like the large population, if you can like get traction here, you might as well don't want to live here, especially if the income is like steady and if the income is like sufficient enough to cover your expenses, because we have the population or we have the size. But looking at it, looking at okay, how do we orientate them? how do we educate them? How do we do different? Because we need a lot of reorientation in terms of their platforms itself and how they can even use it. Because some coming from bar and paper, it has to do it gradually. You can't just jump from bar and paper to come and do AI. It's not, it doesn't necessarily make any sense because the person has been using bar and paper for most roughly 7, 8 years. And it's working somehow fine for him aside the if inefficiencies. What are you not trying to come and picturing that come and start using AI? Yes, you can do step by step. Bar and paper, Excel, digital platform. Those are like the steps that you need to do. We feel because AI is moving too fast, we don't even necessarily have that speed or that time to like reorientate, and we don't necessarily do the groundwork of reorientating anybody or any customer base. So we want to start um where there's already like use cases or where people already know what those AI things are or what those AI platforms are. And then maybe eventually, if you break through, you can then come back and say, this is what is up, this is what we used to, then you get there because you already have the roots there.
Well, for those listening who want to transform their approach to retail intelligence, what insights would you give them?
So to transform that, first you need to understand that there's actually a use case for that. Because what you don't know, you most likely not even look for it. So majority of businesses know that they need efficiency, they need efficiency. And based off maybe education and orientation, most likely they're not aware of how they need to do it and they feel it can be a bit cumbersome. So initially when we first started, we tried to build it as because what every demographic here can use effectively to an extent is WhatsApp. So we initially built the platform to be like as easy as WhatsApp, and we try to navigate the processes where because you're coming from a very bad, not necessarily bad, like used to something, and you don't necessarily see the use case immediately. Um, but you don't want to do that. You're doing a business to survive first. They actually need to see that there's actually a use case for them to use data to like certify their growth. So if you are seeing something as does a survival business, there's no real intelligence that anybody wants to give you that you will use. It does a form of orientation in the first place that okay, I need my data to make decisions. I need my data to grow. Regardless of whatever the economy is saying, I need my data to grow. Okay. So for instance, if I see 10 people buy on Friday, it was Muslim maybe like 1 o'clock for I think they do that Muslim prayers like 1 o'clock or 12 o'clock. So if you see that 10 people buy a particular thing, maybe 1 hour before 1 o'clock, you can then incentivize them and based on that data, you can make decisions that okay, if 10 people are coming, why can't you target these specific people? And say during this period of time, sell this particular thing or upsell something else to them. But you need to first see the advantage of doing those things as against seeing it as a survival business. If you see it as a survival business, as the same way you see it as survival business, you most likely not take the effort to make it grow. Because sometimes you might need to scale your staff, you might scale those type of things, but it first comes from the mindset. Am I doing this business to grow? Regardless of any intelligence anybody wants to give you. If you still see it as I'm just doing it to those pad or to those add extra small income to me, this type of intelligence, any intelligence itself, even if it's Excel, it don't even matter to you. But if you see it as like a business to like expand, then you will know that I need my data to make decisions. And that is what is even happening in the corporate world. If there's no data driven decision, there's no growth. No. It first comes with the mindset. Zero or any other tool cannot give you that intelligence if you don't see the need for it. So
Well, how can people follow what you're doing or connect with you?
yeah. So we have our website, futureloop.co. The other products, I can share that with you. That's leahai.co also. We also have a LinkedIn page, the Retail Loop. Uh, Instagram Retail Loop too. Um, Twitter Retail Loop. The only difference is the Leahai, the AI platform, which is also under the Retail Loop umbrella, but for a different market for now. So uh, LinkedIn is where I'm mostly active. Twitter, fair. We have some presence there. Instagram also have some presence there, and that's where we can majorly be found.
Okay. Olusola, thanks again for being here. Retail Loop's work at the intersection of retail intelligence, data democratization, and customer impact is a perfect example of AI's real world value. For our listeners, if you're thinking about how to enable smarter systems, close your own data gaps, or build an AI ready platform, let's connect. Visit Protelligent.com or reach out to me on LinkedIn. Until next time, question more, build smarter, and stay at the edge of intelligence.